My name is Barrett Johannesson, and today we have a wonderful opportunity to listen and learn from Sze Wong, the CEO of Zerion Software. In today's session, he's going to be discussing big data and what it is and how you should start implementing it in your project. At the end of today's session, we're going to do a little Q&A time so that after I've listened to what Ze's presented on, we can discuss it and he can give more details. And all right, Ze, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. So in the past couple months, we've talked about Gnosis a little bit. Today, I want to focus on a bigger picture like big data. We've all heard about big data, but what is big data? I want to frame it in a slightly different way and more down to earth, so to speak. So let's go. Now, first, before we start, I want to make sure that this talk is not for you if you fit into some of these criteria. So if you know all of these, then this talk is not for you. Now, what big data is, according to Wikipedia, this is what big data is about. It's a broad term, and if you have been listening to reading newspaper articles, internet, there's a lot of information. Well, not just that. If you look at the landscape, the big data landscape, it is full of applications, software everywhere. It is so confusing. Now, add to the confusing is that a lot of the media focus on big data on predicting the future. Now, I'm not discounting that. Big data is a big part of big data is predictive analytics. But that's not what we're trying to focus on. A lot of you, and you are IT managers, business managers, department managers, you are in your vertical, in your industry, solving day-to-day business problem. I bet your day-to-day work is not about predicting the future. So while major media talk about that, it doesn't really apply to us. So how does that work? How does that apply to us as a regular business person? Now, also, according to IDG, companies are spending huge amount of money, on average $7.4 million in 2015. That's a huge amount of data, a huge amount of money apart from the data. So by now, and actually I think some of you will have this feeling, it's like, wow, big data is so big, so expensive, so predictive, I can see the future. But what is that? How does that apply to my day-to-day work? And that's what I want to focus on in this video. Big data, in our view, is a way of thinking. It's not necessarily about big volume of data. It's not. It could be, but it does not have to be. It is a new way of thinking about how you use data. And in particular, it's a drive toward a data-driven culture. Now, a lot of media also talk about that, but they still just focus on huge amount of data and predicting the future. I think even without predicting the future, we need to, every organization, every project, every department, need to drive toward a data-driven culture in order to be more efficient. So, I come up with this maturity model that breaks down what I think can drive toward a data-driven culture in your organization, your department, your projects, etc. So step one, obviously you need some data. And level one is what we call collect, is you just get collection. And how you use data, usually in this stage, you just use spreadsheet. And you build report as needed, you build you get Excel and spreadsheet. And then you figure, well, you're collecting so much data, you want to integrate with your backend system, getting better in organizing your data end to end, maybe sending data back into the front end. And that's the second stage of your data journey. You have end-to-end analytics now. It's getting better. But what's important now is and that's what I want to focus on in this video, is the centralized stage. As you get more and more data collected and integrated end to end, so now you have front-end collection and going into reports, you want to start centralizing all your projects. There are things that you may not even know that you could do from your data if you don't centralize it, if you don't overlap the data. And that's the first step into a new thinking. It's not just looking at the project. So back in level 1 and 2 in particular, you're thinking from a project perspective. You have one thing you're solving. Maybe you're generating a scoring report, a risk profile report, or a beneficiary report. So you're looking at one project, you build a project, build a report, build a dashboard, and collect data for that. Those are level 1 and 2 thinking, and as you grow into level 3, you want to say, okay, well, I want to have an organizational data policy. Now, the key here is when we say organizational, it does not necessarily have to mean your entire company. So we have bigger, smaller company. All this means is you centralize data in a bigger way. Let's say you're running multiple projects. Your department is running multiple projects. Centralizing in this way will mean that you have a departmental policy. And if you are doing department level now, then centralizing will mean organization. Now, once you start centralizing it, the next big step is truly to derive information, derive knowledge from those data that you may not otherwise realize if you're looking at a project level problem solving. So that is the maturity model, and we'll go into a little bit more. So this is another view of the top of the view is about the single stream, what we call the single stream, level 1 and 2. You collect, you integrate, but you're looking at from a project to project perspective. And below is where we want to drive at, is the level 3 and 4, where you centralize data, have multi-stream of data coming in, multi-stream of data coming out. And that is what we're talking about. You have multiple sources, you have complex shape, and in this view of the big data, we're saying big data not necessarily about volume, but actually it's about the shape, the complexity of the data. A lot of our customers reflected to us that even though the data is not huge in volume, they are in different shapes and forms, right? Even when you think different survey and different kinds of data, they come in different shapes. So how do you start analyzing and making use of data when they change forms all the time? And that's when you want to collect them, centralize them, and then make use of them. And so in this slide, we particularly want to focus on the multi-source input and then multi-stages data crunching, data refining, and then get to multiple output. You can now feed into your other backend systems. Maybe some of those will do further analytics. Some of those will do like generate PDF. Some of those will be dashboard. But by this time, you already crunch the data, refine the data into a better state so that you can do further study on the data. So again, focus on level 3. How do you get to level 3 is the important part of your data journey. So first of all, right, you got to think about integrating all your data sources across your organization or department into one location. And obviously, we're talking about Gnosis being that place for you to centralize and collect all the sources into one. Now, secondly, most important actually, is that you start thinking about processes for capturing, curation, validation, and retention. Retention being underlined here because a lot of our customers are not yet getting there. And it will hit you. Once you start collecting a lot of information, in the long run, retention is very important. A lot of projects actually, what they call retention, may be in Excel file or in PDF. If that's the case, then you need to rethink. And we're trying to make this process easy for you. Okay. So again, now that is the maturity model, level 1 and 2, collect and integrate, which from our product's perspective, iPhone Builder solved that problem. and help you collect, help you integrate to the backend. And now Gnosis start at level 3 and 4, help you centralize and strategize. Now, of course, I'm talking about Zerion software, our products, but this does not necessarily only limit to our product. This applies to whatever data collection or data centralization products that you use. I feel like this is a general big data maturity model that applies to the day-to-day business. And again, in contrast with what you hear out there, and this is down-to-earth, day-to-day business solving, but in the big data thinking. Okay, to summarize, to conclude, again, big data is not about volume, not just about volume. It could be about volume or, and most importantly, actually, it's the complexity. And again, information out there does not necessarily apply, so you want to distill it down to the information you truly need and focus on getting to level 3. Start thinking about summarizing, centralizing your data, and think big. All right.
Thank you, Z, for that wonderful presentation.
No
Short,
problem.
sweet, and to the point.
Yeah.
I just want to go through a couple things that you mentioned.
Mhm.
You said this process. You have steps 1 and 2. Step 1 and 2 is to collect and integrate.
Right.
And step 3 and 4 is to then centralize and summarize.
Mhm.
Quick question on this, like the centralizing of data.
Sure.
So let's say we've already, I've collected all this data. I've started to integrate it with my systems. I'm ready for that centralization concept.
Mhm.
What considerations do I have to have for that centralization? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is some of the data that I need is from a government website. How can I bring that in and have that be a part of my centralization of data?
Right, and that is the key part of that consideration. Most people, when they are doing level 1 and 2, they're in a silo environment or technology-driven environment. You have your iPhone Builder data all stored in iPhone Cloud, and then you may have other data in other systems, or you have a lot of Excel files, or even PDF files, or JSON feed that comes in, and they're siloed. And in the centralized thinking, one of the important part is not just one system or one software feeding into that place, and you can call it data lake, but is multiple projects, multiple stream, multiple technology that all feed into together. So now you have a chance to say, well, what if you can ask the what if, and again, going back to your data retention, data curation, and data validation, and data collection. So you start thinking about some organization have projects doing the same thing in different technology, which is fine. Like you will do data collection. Some project will use iPhone Builder on the mobile. Some projects will use Excel on a laptop, which is all right because your data in general are about the same, but because of the implementation detail, you choose a different technology. And that's what centralized, you want to start thinking about how do you bring those together. And then once you bring those together, it makes it very obvious. Well, you want them to look similar. So then it drives into the data collection policy, where even you'll be able to tell projects, even when you're doing iPhone Builder or Excel or Google Forms, you want to retain some similar columns or similar questions, so that when the data comes in, you can easily overlay them.
Great. I mean, this sounds, in the perfect world, it's ideal. You're able to get any data set and integrate it, and it seems to make sense. Mm-hmm. Now, this perfect world, we don't live in that. So what are some issues that you could see that could arise from this idea?
Well, the reason we even start going down this path is because of this imperfect world that we see. And also I laid out in the beginning of the video of the presentation, where the world kind of look at this big data problem in a big way. Well, obviously, right, to derive huge impact, and now we're talking about social, changing the world kind of impact. Most companies, most bigger IT companies are looking at huge problems and solving like the Amazon, Google level problem. But that's that's also driven into, like, you will hear about Hadoop implementation costs millions of dollars. Well, a lot of us, right? We don't have that kind of budget. We're not Walmart. Not everybody is Google. So we hear all about, oh, big data will change the world, but it doesn't change my world. How does it change your world, right? When you're not Google and Walmart and Amazon, and that's where we want to come in and step in and say, well, even if you don't have millions of dollars in your budget, there are still things you can do that you can benefit from this big data movement, and that's also why we try to create this new product that can bring big data, distill it down into the essential, and allow our customer to implement in a better way, in a small way, right? I don't want to say small, but it is not the Google way, right? In particular, so that is like in the imperfect world, we still can do centralizing and strategizing, but I mean, you'll see down the road when we launch Gnosis that this is about giving customers the opportunity to go down this path without spending millions of dollars.
Okay, and that sounds great.
Right.
No, not millions of dollars. Perfect.
Right.
So for those individuals who are current customers, you'd say that step 1 and 2, that collect and integrate,
Right.
that's all done within iForm Builder.
Sure.
And would you say that Gnosis, this new product, would take step 3 and 4?
Yep.
So that the centralizing and the summarizing?
Mm-hmm. And strategizing, actually.
Strategizing,
Yeah.
okay. So would you say no longer summarizing, or does the summarizing and strategizing go together?
It's right. So right now, from the get-go, Gnosis focus on level 3. Focus on allowing you a way to start centralizing. Once you centralize, then the next big question is, well, what do I do now? So in Gnosis, if you listen to some of the earlier webinar, then we have data refining. So you can crunch the data. And we particularly want to focus on that because a lot of the BI tools out there, the big data BI tools, although they allow data to be crunched, the data crunching is actually secondary. So what they focus on is the dashboard, is the visual. Of course, those are eye-catching. But what's most important is the actual business logic, actual workflow, actual data flow, that when you have so many different types of data coming in, how do you match them, make them right? And so we focus on making that correct. And that allow you all to be able to start, well, summarizing is one of those, like aggregation, filtering, aggregation. And then that leads to for you to think about, okay, well, now I can do this easily. Do I then ask everybody to stream data in a common way? And that will be your collection policy. And so also when data come in and when they're ugly, when they're dirty, right? Not ugly, but dirty, in contrast with good data, well, how do you make them no good? So you can also fix them in the collection, or you can fix it in data crunching. Right? So you can clean it up while in this process. And then you feed it into a visual tool.
Okay. So what if maybe I'm not using a visual tool. Can I feed it into or download it as,
Sure.
maybe if I still want to use Excel,
Sure.
I could take that summary and download that instead of myself actually having to put that all together and probably making thousands of mistakes.
Right. Well,
And spending thousands of hours.
right. Gnosis in essence is one of the slides we have. It's about multi-stream, multi-stage, and multi-output.
Mm-hmm.
So you have many different streams coming in easily, and you define the buckets. Each bucket has a data crunching routine, and then you can link them together. You can design how data will flow, thereby creating data flow, data policy, and workflow. And then once you're done with it, and at the ending bucket, you can say, well, this flow into a SQL Server. That flow into Tableau. That flows into Portfolio, or just download the Excel representation of that, or JSON representation of that. So that is the beginning of what Gnosis is about. And again, going back to, we allowed you to have multi-stream, multi-stage, and multi-output. That is the beginning of your centralization step.
Okay, and for those of you who haven't paid attention or have missed some of our past webinars, We'll include a link to the last webinar that we had where we actually had a demo of those buckets and how it works in Gnosis. And so make sure you pay attention to that if you want to learn more. I think that's the rest of my questions.
All right.
The last thing I'll say is for those individuals who aren't aware of Gnosis, what are the 3 main points about this data refinery that they should be aware of or excited about? And is it, how easy will it be to use?
I only have one point.
Okay.
One point is think big. Along this journey, what the trap that it's very easy for what we've seen our business experts get into is they think their projects cannot be benefited from big data, and the big data, the so-called data reservoir, or data lake, or data warehousing is too big, too complex, too expensive, too complicated. It's not, and so you can think big, and Gnosis can help you.
Okay, well, perfect. Thank you very much, and thank you guys for listening.